It's been about 3 years since I posted this video that did very well at the time, explaining the origin and meaning of European country names, so I thought it was about time to provide an update. The names haven't changed, but we can go a little more in depth. No long intro, let's jump straight into it. Timestamps below if you want to skip to a specific country. I'm gonna go west to east because I'm Portuguese and I want to start with my own country. Portugal's name comes from the Roman Celtic Portuscale, which referred to the rough region where Porto and Vila Nova de Gaia are today. Portus comes from the Latin term for port. Cale is unclear in its origin, but it might be related to the Galaeci people which inhabited the region. Some say it could mean port itself, but then the name would be Port. There's also a Celtic goddess named Kala, so that's a possibility. And Ireland's case is actually connected to a Celtic goddess too. Ireland is an English adaptation of the Celtic term Eir, which in turn comes from Eriu, who is a goddess in Irish mythology. I might be wrong, but I think Eru is the god figure in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings universe. That's interesting. Nobody really knows where the Irish goddess got her name from, but it's said she represents water, and so the name would literally mean something like flowing water, so I guess Ireland would be land of the flowing water. Wales is a tricky one. The English name Wales derives from the Old English word wal, meaning foreigners or outsiders. It was used by Anglo-Saxons to refer to the Celtic Britons, which is interesting considering they were the outsiders and the Celts were the natives when they arrived. While the Welsh name for Wales is Cymru, which is a good example of a case where the exonym, what we call a country in English as outsiders, is different than the endonym, what they call themselves in their own language. Cymru itself comes from the Britannic word combrogi, which translates to compatriots or fellow countrymen, pretty much the opposite of Wales's meaning. When it comes to Scotland, it literally means land of the Scots, based on the Roman name for the region, which was inhabited by the Scotti tribe. The Gaelic endonym is Alba, which derives from Albion, connected to the Indo-European term for white, maybe related to the snowy region that it describes. Wrapping up Great Britain, we have England, which comes from land of the Angles, referring to the Angle people who traveled to Britain from around where Denmark is, kind of. Britain itself comes from the Latin Britannia, which comes from the Britanni, the island's original inhabitants, a Celtic name that maybe meant something like painted people, so Britain would be land of the painted people, I guess. Back to the mainland, we have Spain, also deriving from the Latin term Hispania. It seems that the Romans themselves got their term from Phoenician influences. The Phoenicians at one time had settlements and colonies in what is now Spain. They may have called the peninsula something like two very different meanings, but both connected to what the land provided to them in terms of resources to trade. France oddly has a Germanic root, sort of. Its original name was Francia, which literally means land of the Franks, so maybe Francia. The Franks were a Germanic tribe who established a kingdom in the ancient Roman province of Gaul at the time of the barbarian invasions of Europe and the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. Their name is of uncertain origin, but many think it might be related to the Proto-Germanic word frankon, meaning something like javelin, maybe referring to the type of weapons used by the tribe in combat. The old name of Gaul comes from the Latin Galatia or Gallia, which in turn took its name from the local Galli tribe. Hellenistic etymology from ancient Greece connects that name in turn to the term Gala, which would mean milk, referring perhaps to the very pale skin complexion of the Gauls, which I think is still a thing in France today. Yet another example of endonyms and exonyms with different origins and meanings. Now, imagine having to visit all of these countries, or if you chose to do it by foot, how exhausting that would be. You would probably need to train a lot to be able to do it, and so that is a good opportunity to introduce our partner for this video, Trainwell. Trainwell is a personalized personal trainer service. They believe that working out should be about building healthy fitness habits, not fads or quick transformations, and that every person is unique, and so their fitness journey should be too. When you sign up for the app, you fill out a quiz and get paired with your very own personal trainer. You take an onboarding call and explain what your goals are, then they build you your very own training plan. There's a real feeling of human accountability to it, contrasting with all of these other personal trainer apps that you see out there. For example, they have a feature for us users to leave feedback on every workout so that if we feel that it's not great, they can be adjusted. And we can also ask our trainers follow-up questions about form or technique. For example, my trainer, Nate, actually sent me a video of himself doing a workout that I have always kind of struggled with, and watching that video of somebody doing it properly really allowed me to figure out the proper form. On your workout days, you use the app to follow along the plan. My favorite parts of it are the fact they really teach you how to do the workouts properly with instructions. Not only that, but my trainer followed up with me after every training that I did, making sure it was an adequate fit for me. I had started working out by myself, just lifting some weights at the gym, but I wasn't seeing great results, and starting Trainwell with a real personal trainer and a detailed workout plan really helped me improve and see better results. So if you're interested in trying it out, just go to go.trainwell.net/general knowledge to find your perfect trainer and get 14 days of free training yourself. Now let's get back to the video. Stuck between France and Spain, we have Andorra. And here the potential origin is fascinating. There are 3 options and nobody really agrees on which one is more likely. It could come from the Arabic term ad-darra, which means something like thick forest because of the landscape. It could come from the native Basque Andorria, which has a similar meaning, or from Charlemagne, who would have supposedly named the region upon visiting it, calling it Andor in reference to the biblical valley of Endor, which would then evolve into Andorra. Interestingly, the fictional moon of Endor in the Star Wars universe, in the original trilogy, is itself a thickly wooded environment, so maybe George Lucas is a fan of etymology. Quickly stopping by another microstate, we have Monaco. This one also traces its name back to the times of ancient Greece. The place where Monaco is today used to be a Greek colony called Monoikos, which meant single house. Legend says this single house would refer to the local temple built to honor Heracles or Hercules. In fact, the Roman name for the region later on was Portus Herculis Monaeci. From the Latin name Belgica, it was the term chosen arguably by Julius Caesar himself for the name of a Roman province originally inhabited by the Belgae, a Celtic or Germanic tribe. The name of the tribe itself meant something like to swell with anger in battle, from the Proto-Indo-European root Belg. But I don't think the Belgians are very angry people today, so maybe the name isn't accurate anymore. Next to it, the Netherlands have a pretty self-explanatory name. It means lowlands, referring to how little elevation the country has, much of it being beneath sea level. Throughout history, many sources refer to the country as Holland, too, a term derived from the Old Dutch word Holtland, meaning woodland. I guess there was a significant forest there at the time. We also call the inhabitants of the country a third term, Dutch, but this connects to the etymology of Deutsch, and we will learn about that when we get to Germany. Which is right now, because Germany is a great example of a place where endonym and exonyms are very different, and they have at least 5 other names that other countries use to refer to them. The French call it Allemagne, based on the Alemanni tribe. In English, we call it Germany after the Germani tribe, which gave the Romans their name for the region, Germania, while in German it's called Deutschland, land of the Deutsch, which would directly translate to land of the people. Deutsch comes from the old High German term Deutstisk, that has that same meaning. It's just a land where their own people lived, and so they called it as such. I did a whole video focused on this if you want a more in-depth explanation. Dutch, the way that we refer to people from the Netherlands, has a connected etymology because, well, they all came from the same original ancient people, or at least were viewed as such by outsiders. Moving south, we have Switzerland. It means land of the Switzers, which is now an outdated term once used to describe the people from the country in English. It referred to the canton of Schwyz, one of the main ones that makes up the country, and just expanded to be used for the whole country, in a similar way that we used to call all of the Netherlands Holland, even though it's just one part of the territory. The canton of Schwyz seems to have gotten its name from the old High German term Sweddan, meaning to burn, referring to the clearing of forests for building. The Latin name for the country, however, was Helvetia. In fact, the official domain name for the country is Confederatio Helvetica. It was named after the Helveti tribe that initially lived there, and I couldn't really find a meaning for the name of the tribe. Going back to wrap up the Benelux area, we have Luxembourg. Luxembourg's medieval name is the most complicated thing I've ever seen. It was called Lus, fortified structure built on the Alzette River. Burg from Burghuk would mean castle, while the Lucilian part would come from the Germanic term Lutila, meaning little. And speaking of little, what about Liechtenstein's name? Coincidentally, it's also connected to a castle. Liechtenstein is named after its ruling dynasty, which in turn is named after Liechtenstein Castle, which is today part of Germany. Its name derives from the German words Licht, meaning light or bright, and Stein, meaning stone. One can imagine, because these stones used to build a castle were bright, if you search for pictures of it, it does seem to be the case. Italy, of course, comes from the Latin Italia, but the origin of that term is a little contested and uncertain. One theory is that it comes from the word Italoi, used by ancient Greeks to refer to a tribe that lived there. Others say they refer to the fact that the natives of the peninsula worshipped a figure of a calf, Vitulus, in Latin, which would then evolved into Italia. A third group believe it comes from the Oscan word Vitelliu, meaning land of young cattle or land of bulls, because there would be a lot of these animals in that place, which was then transmitted through ancient Greek and Latin. The Osci were also a native people in Italy in ancient times. And within Italy, we have two landlocked microstates. First, San Marino. The name of San Marino is possibly one of the most straightforward we've covered here. In the year 301 AD, to escape persecution from being Christian, the Republic would have then evolved from it. Then, and keeping with the Christian theme, we have the Vatican City. Vatican likely comes from the old Etruscan settlement called Vatica. It came from the Latin word vaticinor, which meant something like the oracle. Others claim it is connected to the name of an Etruscan goddess called Vatica, deity of the underworld, connected also with divination, so maybe both options are partly true. It seems more true even when some sources point to the hill initially being used as a burial site, and that being the reason why, according to local tradition, Saint Peter would be buried there, making it a place of worship for all Christians, and eventually the chosen place for the Holy See. Next, we have Malta. The name Malta likely originates from the Greek word melit, meaning place of honey, most likely referring to the island's native bees and their traditional honey production. Moving all the way north, we have Denmark. It derives from the Old Norse Danmork. It essentially means land of the Danes or mark of the Danes. Mark meant something like woodland or borderland. The Dani tribe seem to be local inhabitants, although some people say Dan could come from an older Germanic word, tenne, meaning something like flatland, because Denmark basically has no hills or mountains. Continuing our way through the Nordics, we have Norway. Norway has a particularity that differs from most countries. It has two languages. Because of this, they have two endonyms, Norge in Bokmål and Noreg in Nynorsk. Both mean the same thing though, and both translate to the same English term of Norway, which comes from the Old English Nordveg, mentioned in around 880 for the first time. It means something like northern way or way leading to the north, which is how the Anglo-Saxons refer to the coastline of the Atlantic part of Norway. When it comes to Sweden, its name is derived from a 17th century Middle Dutch word, at least the English name. The Dutch word was Sveoland, meaning Sweetland. Germans at this time called it Sverige, which meant Swedish kingdom. This is more connected to the Swedish endonym of Sverige, and I think both come from the Old Norse Sviariki. Sverige divides itself into Svea, Swedes, after the local tribe, and Rike, meaning kingdom. Finland rivals San Marino in its simplicity. It literally means land of the Finns, the local inhabitants, but this is our English exonym. The local endonym is Suomi. Its origins are uncertain, but the prevalent theory suggests it comes from the Finnish word Suoma, meaning swampland, or from the word Suomo, meaning fish scale, but the first one makes more sense. Iceland literally means the land of ice. There's not really much to it. Back in continental Europe, we have one of my favorite etymology countries, which is Austria. The English name comes directly from the German one, Österreich, meaning Eastern Realm or Eastern Kingdom, but interestingly, this was actually a translation from the Latin name of the territory given by the Romans, Marcia Orientalis, meaning Eastern Borderland, which the Germans then translated. Slovenia and Slovakia seem to share their etymology, so we can kind of cover them together. Both of them seem to mean land of the Slavs. Slav refers to the ethnic group of people that inhabit Central and mostly Eastern Europe, as well as the Balkans. It seems to come from the medieval Latin sclavus, but other theories insist that it comes from the Proto-Indo-European word slovo, meaning people who speak the same language, in contrast to the Slavic word denoting foreign people, namely Nemci, which is actually how many Slavic countries refer to Germany because Germans spoke a language they couldn't understand. Many state that the English term of slave actually originates from Slav because during the Middle Ages, Slavic people were frequently enslaved. I'm not sure if this is true, but it would be an interesting origin. Czechia, or the Czech Republic, derives its name from the word Česko. The origin seems to be the Sezi tribe and their leader, Czech, who would have brought them to the region. It also used to be called Bohemia after another local tribe, the Boy meaning either the herding people or the warrior people. Nearby is Hungary. And they're called this because the first people that lived there liked to eat a lot. They were really hungry. That's, of course, not true. Hungary is an exonym derived from Ungaria, which referred to the land of the Ungri, the people who traveled from the steppe and conquered the lands. These people can also be referred to as Magyars, and in fact, the endonym for Hungary today is Magyarország. Magyar seems to originate from the Proto-Ugrid monk, meaning man, and Eri, meaning lineage. Then Poland, where the native name is Polska. Both names are derived from the Polans, a West Slavic tribe that first lived there. The tribe's name in turn comes from the Proto-Slavic noun pol, meaning field, referring to the flat territories in which the tribe originally lived and which I guess still characterize most of Poland today. Bosnia and Herzegovina has two names, so let's find out about each. Bosnia seems to derive from the name of the river Bosnia, which could, in turn, derive from the Illyrian bas an as, in turn from the Proto-Indo-European root beg, which means something like running waters. I swear to God that like half of the world's rivers are just called river because the name that we give it just means river in the native language. Herzegovina means Herzog's land, and Herzog derives from the German word for duke, originating from the title of a specific duke of the region, Stepan Vuksić Kosaka. When it comes to Croatia, their name comes from a sequence of ancient terms that go all the way back to the Proto-Ossetian Survat, meaning the one who guards. Croatia is the exonym, their endonym is Hrvatska, and that's derived from the Hrvati people that first lived there, but the origin seems to be exactly the same. The English term is just a Latinized translation. Continuing to the Balkans, Serbia's name is a little unclear. Many theories exist, but the main one states that it comes from a Proto-Slavic term, Srbi, meaning alliance or kinship, also could mean something like the protectors. Montenegro's name comes from the local endonym as well, which is Crna Gora, literally meaning Black Mountain. It refers to the local Mount Lovsen, which was covered in dark, dense green forests. The country still refers to itself in this name, I think, and in English we use the Latin version based on some Venetian inscription. Kosovo's etymology is of South Slavic origin, and it seems to be a Serbian adjective, kos, meaning blackbird, which is incidentally the main symbol in the flag of their brother nation of Albania. Their name origin is, however, different, connected to the Illyrian tribe of Albani, who are in turn named after the root word alb, meaning hill or mountain. The endonym of the country is Shqiperia, and it derives from their word shkip, meaning to speak clearly, a similar origin to the Slav term. North Macedonia takes its name from the Greek region, of course, being just north of it. It comes from the Greek adjective makedonos, meaning tall, possibly describing the stature of the locals at the time, so it would essentially mean land of the tall people. Greece itself is an English exonym too. It comes from the Latin Gracia, which in turn comes from the Gracian tribe, one of the tribes of ancient Greece. The endonym, however, is Elas or Elada. The name has its origins in the mythological figure of Helen, son of two figures that would have survived a flood caused by Zeus to wipe out humanity, then becoming the founding father to all Greeks. Bulgaria is named after the Bulgars, a Turkic tribe who migrated there from what is now Russia and the Central Asian steppes. The tribe's name itself may come from the Proto-Turkic word meaning shake or mix, which doesn't really make much sense. Some others connected it to the ancient native word Bilgeron, meaning people living in the outlands, which would make more sense given the Bulgarians' history. Romania also has a super cool etymology. It comes from the Latin Romanus, meaning of Rome, likely connected with the colonization of the territory by the Roman Empire. Before the Romans, it was called Dacia, named after the Dacian tribes. Moldova is named after the Moldovan River. Central at the time the Principality of Moldavia was created. The origin of the river's name, however, is unclear. Legend says it was named after a local prince's dog, whose name was Molda. This is unlikely, but not really impossible. When it comes to Ukraine, the name is frequently interpreted as coming from the old Slavic term for borderland, as the word krajina would be derived from the Proto-Indo-European root krai, meaning edge. Of course, this could either mean edge of a territory, thus borderland, or edge of a sharp cutting tool, so I guess it's up to you. While Belarus can be translated as White Ruthenia, the term first arose in the days of the Russian Empire, and the Russian Tsar was usually styled the Tsar of all the Russias, the Great, the Little, and the White. Ruthenia was essentially a Latinized form of Rus, used to refer to the lands ruled by those people. Why the White though? I don't know. There are various theories. Some say it was simply because of traditional local clothing, others because it was associated with the west direction, others simply because they had been more Christianized. It's really not certain. And moving to Russia itself, the most relevant part of which is in Europe, it takes its name from the early Rus Vikings that came from Scandinavia and set up there ruling over the Slavic people. The name Rus itself is of uncertain origin, but one theory suggests it might be related to the Old Norse word rud, meaning rowers or those who row. It makes sense considering that they came to Russia by sea. Georgia, despite being in the Caucasus, is definitely a European country. All exonyms are likely derived from Gorgan, the Persian designation for the Georgians, meaning the land of the wolves. That's a pretty cool name. The endonym is very different, Sakartvelo, meaning land of the Kartvelians. It derives from the core central Georgian region of Kartli. Armenia is basically European too. The exonym likely originates from the Urartian word Armeni, meaning inhabitant of Arm, possibly related to the Urumu tribe who first settled there. Their endonym is Hai or Haistan, the origin of which is unknown, but may derive from old words like Hati, Hayaza, or Haik, each connected to ancient words, places, or figures. Azerbaijan is definitely less European in culture, but it's right here, so let's cover it too. The name is believed to derive from the old Persian term Atropaten, meaning land of fire or protected by fire, referencing either the natural burning of surface oil deposits or the fire-worshipping Zoroastrian religion that at one point was prevalent there. Turkey is also technically part of Europe, at least in its East Thrace region. The English name comes from the medieval Latin Turkia, means land of the Turks. Turk would come from the old migration of Turkic people across Asia, referring to the ancient term Turuk, meaning created or strong. Interestingly, an early form of the same name may be reflected in the form of Tiele or Tujue, a name given by the Chinese to the people living south of the Altai Mountains in Central Asia, some of which were shaped like a helmet, and so the name would mean helmet. This is the place that most Turks initially migrated from. Since the region of Turkey that is in Europe is East Thrace, we can learn about the meaning of it too. It seems to come from the ancient word Thraix in Greek, referring to the local tribe, which we then called Thracians. So those are the potential origins of each European country's name. Did I get your country right? If you notice a mistake or have any additional information, just leave a comment below, and keep in mind most of these are uncertain. Thank you again to Trainwell for sponsoring this video. If you want to give the app a try, get a personal trainer, your own personalized training plan, and 14 days of free training, make sure to check them out. Either way, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you next time for more general knowledge. Today's Moomin Cup is one that I don't think I've shown before. It is, to be honest, he reminds me of Doctor Strange. Is that his name? The Marvel guy? And yeah, he's just hanging around with his black top hat and red cape. There seems to be a double moon situation. Maybe he's gazing upon Tatooine. No, that's a double sun, not a double moon. And he has a panther.